But thank you for being here. This is the first of a two-part due diligence series class. So we're going to try and bring people that can help you learn how to get through the due diligence period and keep the deal together, but also help you look knowledgeable to your clients. And so today we have Melanie Selcho with Home Probe. If you haven't met her before, she's got these are awesome little booklets. Great company. I've used them. A lot of my clients have used them, and they're fantastic. And they're there to help you learn as well as help your clients through. We have ARAC Roofing. This is Bryan Clark, and JC's with him too. They're going to speak the second half of the class and give you a little bit of information about what to look for in the roof during your inspection. You know, what different types of roofs there are, how long they're supposed to last. What do you do if you've got a bad roof? All that type of information. So he'll be speaking at the end of it. So right now, I'll turn it over to Melanie.
Cool. Should we move this?
We can.
All right, cool. So if you like what we talk about today, I have a whole 3-hour CE class where we go into more depth. So I pulled from that because I think the due diligence part, real estate's all hurry up and wait, right? Hurry up and wait for them to accept your offer, then hurry up, and then your due diligence is over, and then you wait for closing a little bit. And so that due diligence period is such a hurry up phase, and so I have a lot to help you with in terms of I'm the person that people call when they move in and there's a surprise. So I have a lot of experience with that. So we have a whole class designed in terms of how to get from your inspection report to an amendment that really helps your client negotiate the best way possible. And I've pulled pieces from that to teach you a little bit more about inspection. Do you guys have the lights off? It would be easier to see that. All right.
Yeah.
I'll get them. Okay, awesome. So when my son was 10 years old and I started working at Home Probe, he was in after school program, and he said, "Can you sponsor my after school football league?" And I was like, "Why would Home Probe do that?" And he said, "Well, I'll put your logos on our uniform, and then I'll tell everyone you make sure Chucky doesn't live at their house." And, at first I was like, "How do you know who Chucky is?" And then secondly, I thought, he knows more about inspection than most people would think, because really, let's talk about the feelings of the different parties once you get to due diligence. When the seller has negotiated the price on their house, and they've negotiated that contract, how do they feel usually?
Like their home.
Like their house is the Taj Mahal. That buyer is lucky I even put it on the market. I can't believe I asked so little for this house. I am practically giving it away. Don't sellers feel like that? Particularly if they've done any work on the house themselves. How do buyers feel at the moment of due diligence? So now your offer's been accepted. I think we see buyers in two different, well, this is the other, when you get to the inspection, how does the seller feel? Did any of your moms, I'm old school, and I was raised by an old school mom, and so when we were kids on Saturdays, we had to do our housework, and then our mom would inspect. So you would clean your room, and then your mom would inspect your room. So we would stand outside our room while she went in to inspect. Was my mom my friend right then? No, right? She was scary. She was like the police. So that's how sellers also view inspectors. They don't like inspectors, and it feels like everything is really personal at the time of the inspection. Let's go to buyers. Buyers, they've gotten really excited about the house when they put the offer on. Now the offer gets accepted, particularly if they were in a multiple offer situation. They maybe are worried they paid too much. And so we see buyers in two different categories. The first one is, oh no, what did I do? Buyer's remorse. Any of you ever heard about that? I experienced it in my last house because I walked into that house and I had lost an offer before on a house I really wanted. And so that house I was pretty aggressive with, and I got home and I was like, I don't remember if there's a linen closet. I couldn't remember anything about the house. I think I'd spent 10 minutes in it. And then I went beyond my budget to buy it. And so I was like, what did we do? So there's you have buyer's remorse. And then some buyers are so in love with their house. They're like,
I was when we got our puppy, Elvira. Isn't she cute? So we brought this puppy home to my 4 kids right before Christmas, and they fell in love with her in less than 10 minutes. Everybody was in love with the puppy, and then I'm like, oh, let me look at the paperwork.
Yes.
And the paperwork says take the puppy to the vet within 3 days to see if there's something wrong with her. And I was like, what? Don't you already know nothing's wrong with her? So I had to take this puppy we were all in love with to the vet to see if something was wrong with them. And sometimes buyers feel like that when they are at the home inspection. They're so in love with this house. They're like, you can't find anything wrong with it. And it's so emotional and so stressful, the inspection is.
She's a black pug.
Yes, isn't she cute?
I used to know.
And then they think that everything wrong with the house is money that's going to be coming back their way, that they're going to be able to renegotiate the entire contract based on the inspection. And when clients go into inspections feeling like that, they are usually disappointed because, first of all, we don't get involved in the financial part of the transaction because you've spent all the time with them. I have no idea if they're at the top or the bottom of their price point. I have no idea how many houses they went to go look at before. But if they come into the inspection seeing dollar signs, they're usually set up for a poor experience. And so we're going to talk today about how to set up your clients so that they get a good experience out of the inspection. Where do most buyers find their house? Online, right? Even if they use a real estate agent. In fact, the National Association of Realtors does a survey of everybody who bought and sold a house, and they break their answers down by generation. And other than baby boomers who still find them more from realtors than online, every other generation finds them, even if they use a realtor later, they found the house online.
Right.
So they think their best friend is Zillow or however else they're looking. A house online is a little bit like a person on Tinder. It's like you're just getting the pretty picture, right? And when the inspection comes in, it's like we're gonna do a background check, and we're gonna meet the parents, and we're gonna get a lot more information. And so there's a big perception versus reality, and it's not only confusing, but sometimes it's a wake up call. So. We want to do that as gently as we can because we're going to go in all the places your buyer didn't want to go, like the crawl space. So it often leads agents asking, why is the inspector even here? All you're here to do is kill my deal, right? Everybody was happy before the inspector came, and suddenly no one's happy anymore. And I want to tell you why we're here. It all goes back, people have always been asking each other about things they bought. So it used to be that we were more attached, buyers were more attached to the sellers, like you knew somebody selling a house, and then you also knew your builder a little bit, and so you would just ask your parents what they thought about it. What do you think of the Thomas's house? We're thinking about buying it, right? That 40s and 50s. And then in the 60s and 70s, we started experiencing tract housing. And so people were more removed from the sellers and more removed from builders. And so they started asking contractors who worked for builders to do a contractor's inspection. And it was just structural. It was like, thumbs up, thumbs down, is this okay? And the American Society of Home Inspectors was born around that time period in the mid 70s to late 70s. Because as we started learning a little bit about our house, now we want to know more. Consumers always want to know more. And so that's where the American Society of Home Inspectors, you'll hear it called ASHI, A-S-H-I, came about to try and create some standards about, well, what are we going to tell somebody? What is a home inspection? And just after that, there was a huge lawsuit in California. So are you all pretty new to real estate? Like less than a year? So imagine how excited you'd be to get in real estate if this lawsuit had continued. There was a person who bought a house in California, and that house was on had a cliff overview. And after they bought the house, it turned out the house was kind of falling off the cliff. And the listing agent had noticed some uneven floors, and so she asked her seller, hey, do you know anything about these floors? Are they okay? And the seller's like, yeah, they're all fine. So there wasn't an issue of disclosure for the listing agent. So she listed the house, the buyer bought it, nobody thought anything was right. This is before people were standardly doing inspections. And the buyer moves in, the house continues to shift. They figure out the house is worth about a fourth of what they paid for it with the amount of work they're gonna have to do to the house. In fact, there were nets off the cliff to collect the rocks that were falling as it was sliding.
And so they sued. And who do you think they included in that lawsuit? The listing agent. And this is what the judge found. It's crazy to think about now for where we are now, but 1984 is not that long ago. The court decided that the real estate agent had a duty to conduct a reasonably competent and diligent inspection of the residential property listed for sale, and to disclose to the buyers all facts materially affecting the property that such investigation would reveal. Would any of you list a house if you were going to be personally responsible for anything wrong with it based on your own inspection?
Not for 3%.
Not for 3%, right? No way. So this is where the inspection industry really started to boom, because the National Association of Realtors got involved and said, no way, we're not doing that. We won't be able to get realtors. And that's where we've moved to the state we're in Georgia at least, of buyer beware. Every state has some version. Some have more protections than others, but Georgia is very much a buyer beware state. And that's why, because otherwise you would be between a rock and a hard place. So it's statistically, it's hard to know how many houses get inspected that get bought, but we hear about 90% of homes have inspections. This is what, if you would have joined real estate in the early 2000s, when we first started inspecting, this is what your inspection report would have looked like. Page 4 of 5, yellow carbonless copy, check marks. It looks like a kindergarten report card, right? Plays well with others, satisfactory, mid, unsatisfactory, with a few notes from the inspector. Our reports now, I should have had page numbers. Our reports are about 50 pages long now, and every time you see a blue, it is a link to more information. And so they're getting a lot more information, and the thirst for information is continuing to increase. So now there's a lot more for you to sift through and sort through as the real estate agent. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how to pick an inspector, and then I'll talk a little bit about what you'll see on reports, and then I'll save the rest for questions. So the inspection tends to draw a type of personality of somebody who knows a lot and wants to protect others, and that tends to draw somebody who wears a cape and wants to save people from houses they really love. And that is the worst kind of inspector you can have in your transaction. So inspectors who say, if it were me, it's never you. So it's really important to watch out for that type of an inspector. And in fact, I want to tell you about inspectors in general. So what did you have to do to get your real estate license?
Take a course.
Take a class.
Pass a test.
Pass a test.
And take post-licensing.
Post-licensing.
Classes.
Did you have to find somebody to hold your license?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you have to have insurance?
Yes.
What happens if you do something that somebody doesn't like? Where can they go?
So the GREC.
They can go to the GREC, and you might never be able to sell a house again, right?
Correct.
Okay. So, do you want to know what you have to do to be an inspector?
Nothing.
Nothing. There are no licensing for inspectors in Georgia. So I am competing with who I call Chuck in a truck. Anybody who has a flashlight and a ladder and has ever worked on a construction site on a house feels like they're an inspector. Georgia law requires we produce a written document. They require that it says it's a visual inspection, and they require that we tell people defects. But it doesn't ever define what defects are. So unless you're a really seasoned buyer, you would never know the difference between a really good inspector and not. And should an inspector do something wrong, instead of the GREC, it's just a fine for a misdemeanor, and they can go on to their afternoon inspection. So it's really important to help your buyers understand that. There is no insurance that's required for inspectors. There's no standards they have to inspect to. There's no continuing education required, and there's no such thing as a licensed inspector in Georgia. In other states there are, but in Georgia there's no such thing as a licensed inspector. Anyone who says they are has a business license. So how do you pick? If you're getting a good inspection, it should be in like a $400 to $500, sometimes up to $600-ish range. So let's just take $500, for example. If you called up a doctor for an exam and they said it was going to be $500 and the other person was $425 and the other person was $525, would you go with $425? Or would you go with the person you had the most confidence in? It might be the $425.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, $75 isn't going to make it or break you in your health. And I believe the same to be true for inspection. So even if you're not referring me, what I suggest is if your buyers are calling for quotes, that they go with the person they're most comfortable with and just pay their fee. The quote just tells you how much it's going to be and tells you if you're out of my price range. Because if we're talking about, you know, a $50, maybe even $100 difference, are they going to remember that difference when they sell that house? But a cheap inspection can cost them thousands of dollars. And I've got an article that's really good about it in this Realtor Reference Handbook about somebody who's not regularly doing inspections doesn't know things to look for. And those things can cost your client $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. And so then they'll remember their bad inspector when they turn around and sell that house. So the whole idea is how should you pick? And these are some really great things to ask about just besides price. What's their availability? Are they going to get me my report in time for my due diligence? What's their experience level? I like to say for us, I like to call the cell phone my inspector's best tool. Because do you ever tell people on a buyer consult or listing appointment that you work for Keller Williams on Peachtree Road?
I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, why?
Because we're high producing, good track record.
The office has a good track record of agents, right? Why else?
It's reputable. How does your buyer benefit from an office's good, or your seller benefit from an office's good track record?
Well, I keep hearing we're more trained than most of the people I know.
They know you're more trained, and you have access to all of the agent's wisdom here, right?
Right.
It's so surprising to me when I come to really, because I always feel like, aren't you guys competing against each other? But really, you're really like a team. And I hear agents share lead generation. I hear them share transaction things. The same is true with with a team of inspectors. So my inspectors have 100 years of experience in construction and inspection, and they're all constantly on their phones, and that's what allows them to be nimble and allows them to be able to inspect a brand new high-rise condo to a old house that hasn't been flipped to an old house that has been flipped. Mm-hmm. They're all very different animals, and that's what allows them to inspect. So experience level is huge. Reporting. Are you going to be able to get the information you need off of the report? Professional affiliations. In Georgia, ASHI is the strongest that we've been able to find. It is stronger than InterNACHI, and so that's a really great professional affiliation. What are their client services? Can you get them on the phone before the inspection? If you can't get them on the phone before the inspection, you for sure won't be able to get them on the phone after the inspection. And what do they do if something goes wrong? And then do they have insurance? So those are really good questions to for clients or you as you're establishing relationships to ask inspectors. ASHI, which I've mentioned a couple of times, is a professional organization that inspectors can choose to join. It's voluntary. And if you join it, you have to promise to follow the ASHI standards of practice. And then to become certified, you have to take a test. You have to be willing to do continuing education. And then you have to perform 250 paid inspections using their standards. So as my inspectors are doing this, they work for about 6 months. Then we send a list of their inspections to ASHI. And those are all audited by us, by one of their team leads. We send those to ASHI, and they pick several, and then they audit the reports themselves to get their ASHI certification. If you're an ASHI member, an inspector cannot have a conflict of interest. So that means if you bring the second buyer to a property and you say, hey, ASHI inspector, I heard you did the first inspection for the first buyer in the transaction. The deal was killed over mortgage or something like that. Can you share the report? They can't share the report. The inspector can't. The other agent can if they want. The client can if they want. But the inspector can't. There's a confidentiality. They also cannot do repairs. So you don't want the same person inspecting who's going to repair because they end up having a conflict of interest. So these are part of the ASHI standards, and if you want them, I'll be happy to share ASHI standards. You can also go to their website, and it talks about what the inspection is really about. An inspection is a sampling exercise. So there is no inspection that will tell. Well, there is one, but nobody wants to pay for it. So technically, this is a good conversation to have with your clients. In order to get a technically exhaustive inspection to tell you everything wrong with the house, it's about $3,000 to $10,000 and takes 3 days. And a real estate transaction just isn't set up for that, equipped for that. So a home inspection is a sampling exercise.
So we're going to sample the house and we're going to gather a lot of data about the house. And through the course of that, we're going to discover some elephants, things that may change a purchasing decision, and some mice, hopefully not actual real mice.
Do you do that type of inspection for luxury?
So most people who are buying luxury still don't want it, because if you've spent $3,000 to $10,000 and all you have is information and you haven't fixed anything,
Right.
like that $3,000 to $10,000 is much better invested in a repair. So I don't recommend technically exhaustive inspections. An inspection process, are there some people whose the inspection process has limitations that make them where they get a little bit burned? Yeah, just like anything in life, it's like going for a checkup. Are there some people who go for a checkup and then 5 days later fall over dead? And could there have been some test you could have done at their checkup that maybe would have shown you that? But it just doesn't make sense when you look at the general population. It's a lot like that for inspections. The inspection process, especially following ASHI standards, and we actually exceed them in 10 different ways, it gives most people enough information to make a purchasing decision. Every once in a while, there's something that just wouldn't show up in an inspection. And if you think about everybody spending $3,000 to $10,000 to avoid those very few instances, it just doesn't make sense. But it's a good thing to talk to your clients about. Like this is a good thing, and it also won't find everything wrong with the house. We're going to find out as much as we can, and we're going to use standards that have been used for 50 years, almost 50 years, to find out as much as we can, and it's going to put you in a good place. So along the way, the reason inspection reports used to be able to be 5 pages and now they're 50 to 100 is because we give more information about the house. As we're looking for elephants, we will sometimes find mice, which wouldn't really change a purchasing decision. A loose outlet cover wouldn't change a purchasing decision, right? But it would be not the right thing to do to not tell your client about it as we found it. And so there's a lot of things that are minor in inspection reports as a result of that.
Knowing the scope of the inspection, it's a visual inspection. Home inspections are visual, so inspectors are not moving things around. They don't dismantle the HVAC. They won't move a bookshelf away from something. They're not. It's all visual. They do take the cover off of the electrical panel. I think that's really about the only thing that's not visual. They can't see behind walls, even with infrared cameras. So infrared cameras, our philosophy on them is that unless you are pointing at the right spot in the right condition, you're not going to find anything out about them. And so they give people a lot of false positives a false sense of security. We are working on getting somebody who's trained to know how to point them at the right things at the right time and not the wrong things at the wrong time. So having an infrared camera without really good certification in it is like having a scalpel and saying you're a surgeon. And so until we can find somebody where we can match up that training, it's just not good. You have to have a temperature differential. So if water has to be there in order to see water with an infrared camera, and water has to be new enough to not be the same temperature as the air. And if it's an electrical issue, it has to be happening at the moment you point the camera to it.
So Melanie, what are the different defects you're looking for with an infrared camera?
So usually infrared looks for temperature, and so a lot of people think it will show leaks. Sometimes it does. I have a picture from our old building where we had a leak. You could see the stain in the ceiling, and we pointed the infrared camera at it, and you didn't see anything. And that's because the water either wasn't there or wasn't a different temperature at the time. And the other thing that comes about with temperature is electrical issues. So sometimes you'll see heat coming off of the electrical wiring.
How much cost does something like this part of an inspection add, and what are the percentages that it finds anything of consequence?
So we don't offer it right now because we don't have somebody, and we haven't been able to find anyone to sub it out to that makes sense. What we're finding is it costs almost the same amount as the inspection. And so to us, it's not, when we can look, in fact, I've got an example, when you can look at the ceiling and see it's been patched or stained, we'll get out the moisture meter. That tells you if the roof is right above it, it tells you the roof leaked at some point, right? If there's a water stain, you need to figure out where that water stain came from, and having an infrared camera there doesn't tell you any more than the stain itself. So I don't have a good answer for that because we haven't found a good enough answer to be able to offer it to our clients. We're pretty picky about offering things to our clients. So we used to do mold testing, and we no longer do mold testing because I can't answer any questions about the test when it comes back. So get an expert who does do mold testing to do your mold test. The inspection will not see through obstructions. This came from an inspection. One of the good things about working with us is if there's something the inspection can't see, then we will come back at no charge if you can get the condition to change. So if they have all their stuff in the basement and you can get them to pack up, bring us back. If the gas isn't on, so we're not able to test the furnace, get the gas back on and we'll come back out at no charge. And the scope of the inspection, a home inspection typically is looking for, I'll show you the different categories that we're looking at, but it typically is not inspecting for environmental hazards like mold, asbestos, lead. Mold comes from water, so a lot of times you'll see mold on an inspection report, but that's just because mold happened to be there because there was water there. An inspection will not guarantee there's no mold, a traditional home inspection. Pests are also not part of a traditional home inspection. So some companies will offer a free termite letter, and we used to partner with one who they were really difficult to schedule with. If you think about what a pest's job to do, how do they survive?
By killing.
What do they have to do from people? They hide, right? Sometimes they have some help from sellers. So it's a real specialty, and it's actually a licensed industry in Georgia. And so if pests are a big concern, most companies will do a free pest inspection. They charge for the termite letter, but they do it as a loss leader because they want the pest business. And so they are more equipped to be able to determine pests than a home inspector is. One of the things that's also outside the scope, but I think you need to know about, is radon testing. Do you hear about radon a lot?
Yeah, but I don't know, personally, I don't really understand.
Me neither. I
how
feel
to
like it gets
communicate.
ignored a lot because nobody knows what it is.
Yeah, so some people think it's like Santa Claus. We don't know if it exists or it doesn't exist. So let me tell you a snippet about radon. Radon is a gas that comes up as the soil breaks down, so it naturally occurs, and it comes from uranium. And so uranium can have pretty powerful and also carcinogenic effects. So it's in all the air we're breathing. And what a radon test does is determines if the house is keeping too much of that, and so that the levels are too high in the house. Radon is actually the second leading cause of lung cancer, and it kills more people a year than drunk driving. So here's my perspective. We have seen about a 10% increase in just the last year of buyers requesting radon testing. So the chances, and so it's up to about half of our buyers, and 1 in 15 homes comes back high in Georgia. So if you show a buyer 15 houses, likely one of them has radon, statistically. So think about, then they become the seller. Nobody ever talked to them about radon testing. Their buyer does a radon test, and they're like, what's that? It comes back high, and now they have to pay $1,500 to $2,500 in mitigation and leave the house feeling like, did we all get lung cancer from living in that house? Who are they mad at? You, right? I don't want them to be mad at you.
Do you guys offer radon mitigation systems?
We do not offer the mitigation systems because we test. And so it would be a conflict of interest for me to test and then offer a fee-based mitigation system. I have a really awesome mitigation person that I refer, and I get nothing back from referring except knowing that people are well taken care of. So I have a whole lunch and learn about radon.
What's the incremental cost for requesting a radon test when they're getting a home inspection done?
So we do it, and I stay pretty competitive in this. I've seen anywhere from $175 to $250. We're at $199 right now. It takes 48 hours to get it back, and then,
How do you build that how do you build that into your due diligence? Like because I know most times, right, people go binding. It's not like we can get the inspector out there the next day and they're really good.
So here's what I do. Yeah. So when people are calling today, so people call on Tuesday and we're booked up till Friday, and they have a 7-day due diligence period. They'll get their test back on Monday. But sometimes if I know like they have a 5-day or shorter, and we can get the inspection in on Friday, I can set up the radon early. So I can set it up on Wednesday to get the test on Friday. So I always tell them when they're going to get the test results, and I always send it to the agent.
Does anybody do a pre-list inspection to have the results available?
So we have seen very little in pre-listing, of our total pre-listing inspections do radon. The one good reason to do it is you can do a longer test and the longer tests are more accurate. So it's less likely to have a high result off a 100-hour test than a 48-hour test, just because you have more sampling. But it's hard to convince.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense for the seller to do it because they have no motivation to do that. And they're like, it just doesn't. It makes sense for the buyer to do it.
Yeah, they have a 50-50 chance on the buyer doing it. So they have a 50% chance the buyer's not going to do it. And then they have it's 1 in 15 if they do it. So if I were a seller, I always let the sellers know about it, because if they do want to do that 100-hour test, it's more likely they'll be believed if they do it up front than after you get a high result. Sometimes people call me, they're like, we got a high result for my listing, can you do the 100-hour test? And I'm like, it's not going to do any good, because people are not going to they're not going to believe the results. So when you think about the scope of the problem, most radon mitigation is about $1,500 to $2,500. And so it's not that big of a deal. It puts a bad taste in their mouth if they never heard about radon when they went to buy that house, if nobody told them about it. So we make sure they heard about it. So the last thing I'll talk about is the roofer coming back? Or
Yeah, they are coming back.
do you want me to keep talking until they come, or?
They're here, they're just waiting on you.
They're waiting on me.
Yeah.
Let me just tell you the 3 things an inspection report goes through. And then, like I said, I have a whole CE class about this if you want. We can sit through it, and it's lots of fun. So the 3 things, an inspection is we're gathering information about the house. How old is the roof? What kind of roof covering is there? As we gather that information, Ashley tells us we have to describe things about the house, and so those are reported under descriptions. So what kind of a roof you have, how old your HVAC is, may not have a recommendation related to it. So if you have a brand new HVAC system, we're going to tell you what your HVAC system is under descriptions. If you have a really old one, we'll tell you what kind it is under descriptions, and then we'll say prepare for replacement under recommendations. So description just means what am I buying? What am I buying? Recommendations means is it nearing the end of its life expectancy, or is it not functioning as intended? Is there a repair that should be made? And so that's where most people spend their time in the report. I want to advise you to spend a little bit of good time in the limitations. The limitations means we thought we should inspect this, and then we couldn't for whatever reason. The gas was off. The electricity was off. The homeowner had something in front of the electrical panel. If there's a limitation and you make an assumption about it, I promise you it will come back to bite you, because those are the biggest surprises that we see. So for instance, I'll tell you one funny story and then we'll leave on limitations. So we were looking at an amendment for somebody. They had a double vanity sink in the master bathroom, and the inspector put in the limitations water was off to the right side. So that's not a repair. We don't know why the water is off, and we can't just turn it on. We won't just turn it on because it's off for some reason, right? So if you can get it on, we'll come back out and inspect it. But it just said water is off, and it wasn't addressed by this agent anywhere in their amendment. And so we were like, why didn't you address that? And she's like, oh, they just probably had the water turned off. And we said, you probably should address it. It turns out they never had plumbing installed to that right side. They installed a double vanity with never having the plumbing. So how mad is that buyer going to be when they buy that house? They think they have 2 sinks, and their agent said, oh, they probably just turned the water off. There was no water to turn off or turn on. So limitations, whenever you make an assumption, like it's a brand new water heater, the pilot light was just not lit. Have somebody light the pilot and have it tested, because you don't know why. It's a brand new AC, it's under 50 degrees, they can't test it. It's really rare for us to go through a whole due diligence period in Georgia without the weather hitting 50 at some point. Have us come back out and test it, because it might not even turn on. And you don't want to be the one that said, oh, I thought.
So do inspectors like that? Because what I've seen in a lot of reports is the inspectors don't like the pilot. So
We will not light it, but if you can get the listing side to light it, which I would do, I would say we want to inspect this,
So
light the
we
pilot.
Light it before the inspector comes out.
Yeah, or we'll come back out. So your buyer doesn't know that the pilot's not lit usually by the time we get there.
How much is that charge?
We charge $0 for that.
Okay.
come back.
That's
To
good.
come back and finish the first inspection,
That's
to
good.
do limitations.
That's unusual,
Yeah.
by the way.
It is unusual, but it's not your buyer's fault. That's why we do it. And I am so much. It's so much better for your buyer to have that information.
Yeah.
So I don't do that for repairs. I just do it for limitations. So I think you guys want my class. Anyway, I love
Yeah.
Can you tell this is fun stuff for me to talk about? There's a lot of good information in this Realtor Reference Handbook. Thanks for spending some time with me. I'm excited to hear the roofing side.
Thank you. That's great.
Thank you, Melanie. So you've got an inspection report. That can just be the first part of your inspection of that house. So you do a general inspection, and then based on that inspection, you can have items that need a little bit more inspecting. So one of those a lot of times is the roof. So our next speaker, we've got ARAC Roofing, Roof It Forward. I love because number one, they give back like we give back at Keller Williams. They have the same philosophy that we have, and they have done great work for me. They have inspected roofs, and maybe they didn't end up replacing the roof, but they will come out if there's an issue, and sometimes no cost, sometimes a small cost, depending on the situation. So they've been very good. So they're here to tell you a little bit about roofing. JC and Bryan Clark.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for having me. And this is Casey. Sorry, I know.
Casey, I'm sorry.
I was probably just had dry mouth. But yeah, this is Casey Beaver. He is our National Business Development Manager. So he was a former real estate agent. So he's been on your side before, kind of knows what to look for. He's since joined our side and going to help out with the due diligence aspect today.
Yeah, sure. And so
I'm going to be his Vanna White. So
yeah, we'll just now Bryan is going to be you guys' contact for everything. And the card you got sitting in front of you is Bryan's info. I wanted to remind you guys though, we're doing a drawing for something. So if you hadn't put your business card in here, please do. But just to talk to you a little bit about who we are and what are some things that kind of come up that are going to be tripwires for you. Roofing issues regarding a real estate transaction can be some of the biggest tripwires that you run across. It can kill deals. And a lot of times it won't kill the deal until you're weeks into the thing and you realize in due diligence that there's this issue that you think you're going to be closing here in 2 or 3 weeks, and all of a sudden there's a huge tripwire. So what I figured out is whatever screws I had loose to be a contractor instead of a realtor, I had those screws loose. But I'm right where God planted me, right? We started doing things that just made sense in the business, and a lot of that just ended up working out for us. And one of those things that we really did, we're a Christian-owned and operated company, and we don't hide behind that. That's not a marketing piece for us. We believe honestly that we've been blessed in business, and so we pay that back forward. And we came up with the idea of Roof It Forward. We weren't just called this ARAC up here, and we still kind of are, but we came up with the Roof It Forward idea as a pay it forward kind of play on words. And the reason that kind of lines up with what you guys do is because your clients, when you're going to be bringing people alongside you, contractors, anybody else you're going to be bringing alongside you, they're a reflection of you. And what we've got to have you guys know is that no matter what deal we get involved in with you, it's bigger than that one deal. Like there's no amount of money that we can make on one deal that would make it worth it for us to just give you half the truth or to just be self-serving in that. All right, our bread and butter is you guys calling us. We spend no marketing dollars for that. We create win-win relationships with real estate agents. I was a real estate agent back in 2006 up to 2008. And the reason I was an agent is I was flipping homes, and I thought I was about to be the next Barbara Corcoran or Donald Trump or something. We had it really rocking. I had a partner that was owned an appraisal company, and I thought, okay, I should just go get my agency license, and we'll just team up this thing, and it'll go great. And we were putting all of our properties on short-term money and on LIBORs, like interest-only LIBORs, and the next thing you know, 2008 happens. And so I'm stuck with 25 rental homes that are on ballooning notes. Every one of them, the bottom dropped out of the equity we even thought we had, and then they all ballooned. And honestly, I thought I was going down with the trip. I had 25 homes. I thought I was going down with the ship. And so quickly I learned what you guys know. I had to start figuring out how to be a property manager. I had to start figuring out how do I cash flow homes, how do I sell homes, like keep my ear to the ground of the market. I wasn't actually even an active real estate agent. I only got it to do our own homes. But I got a crash course in your timelines. I got a crash course in your motivations. I learned real time how to stick things up and how to fix things, right? You fast forward a bit and I figure out I've got the screws loose to be in roofing, And my lowest hanging fruit was to work with agents, because I just understand your world. I say that to say guys like Bryan and myself, I've kind of just been able to teach them and pass this down about how we can be of service to agents. And a lot of times, when you get down to the due diligence period on things, you needed me yesterday. You know, by the time you realize you needed me yesterday. So a little bit about the service that we do, and you'll see how it's kind of a fit and why it's relevant to due diligence. If you're working with the seller, if you're working with the listing, right, it's pretty simple. All right, don't wait until the home inspector comes and finds something that's going wrong during due diligence, because it limits us on what we can do. If there's hail damage up there, if there's something structural, if it's just an old doggone roof, the chances we're going to be able to get all that red tape handled and get this and keep your closing on track, it's going to be really tight. So I would say to you in this, as you get listings, just make it a part of your presentation even. That, listen, we're going to have our roofer go ahead and come out here and inspect it, make sure there's no tripwires. The tripwires that come with the roof, I said it before, they're expensive. They can derail your deals. We don't charge a dime to come out and do our inspections. We want to be of service to you guys, right? So it's our lowest hanging fruit. When you call, we answer, right? Like that, you're our go-to clients. So when you get us involved, we're going to come out and inspect the roof, but we actually do everything on video, right? So we do a video documentary of what's going on that roof. That way we can email that over to you. You can present it to your client. You can present it to the agent across the table. However it serves you and however you need it. We're going to video everything that's up there, looking for leak issues, looking for just condition issues, looking for hail damage, storm damage, looking for the fact that there's nothing wrong with this roof at all other than it needs some updating on caulking or things like that. But either way, you can have 10 different roofers go out there and 9 of them are going to tell you that you just need a new roof. So that's why we do everything that we do on video. Because what you need is accurate information, you need bottom line numbers, you need the truth on where your deal stands. All right, so we go out early in the process and we are able to so much better help you. When you think listing, when you're doing your listing presentation, tell them I'm going to go ahead and have my roofer come by and look at this thing. He'll do a video documentary and let us know if we've got any tripwires coming. I can't tell you how many times we've been able not only to salvage deals, but actually protect the sales price, because if they get us involved early and we get up there and we're able to find hail damage, that homeowner can then address the roof through the homeowner's insurance. We can get through that process and the homeowner's insurance pays to replace that roof. You've just increased your curb appeal. You've just given your side of the table a negotiating tool when they're saying, hey, I want you to replace the HVAC. Well, hold on a second, just put on a $20,000 roof. And it actually doesn't come out of your bottom line. It came out of all that money you paid your client paid the insurance company, right? So earlier we're involved, more options we have, all right? On the buyer side of things, hey man, just like buyers will run you ragged and they'll have you take them to look at 12 different houses and you know that the first 11 are not going to be the one they're going to buy, right? Just like they run you ragged, if you let them, they'll run us ragged too. All right, we work with a ton of Keller Williams offices. We want to be available. So what we say is that when you're working with the buyer, get us involved when you start to think home inspector. Home inspectors usually are going to look at the roof either maybe from the top of a ladder, maybe with some binoculars or things like that. And you know, they don't want to get up on the roofs a lot of times. Some of them will, some of them won't. But a lot of times what they'll give you is pictures talking about general condition and then say, you know, get a qualified roofer to look at this for you. So if you're thinking home inspection because they're that far along to where they're making an actual offer, that's when you get us involved. We'll go out and do the same thing the home inspector does, but we'll do it from the roof aspect and let you know whether the roof's going to be something that you're going to have to consider in your offer, or whether there's repairs that I would have done before I ever even bought this house or whatever. So that's how kind of we serve people and how you get us involved. But for the most part, the main thing that we offer is just what you can't get anywhere else. You just can't get the people that we have with any other company. And there's lots of roofing companies out there. Probably everybody knows a roofer. But when you want to lead in your marketing that you're a Christian-owned and operating company, that carries a sense of, there's a responsibility to the marketplace at that point. Your competition's going to say that it's contrived. People will, that just don't get that will say it's a marketing piece. But I just want to tell you, we do a really good job of making sure we hire good people first. We can teach them the rest. But just hire competent, good people that are going to treat you, honestly and help you, regardless of whether it helps us. And then what you find is we make partnerships. Like I'm not really here to sell you guys on being a roofer. What we want to be is a tool for your business, just like get you in touch with dozens of other agents that use us. And like she was mentioning earlier, we will help put out the fires before you feel the burn on this stuff, right? So just listen, what we've got now, we've got your cards right here. And what we're going to do with those, you don't go into some mass email, system or anything like that. Brian's going to text message you his contact, and it'll say Roofer Bryan Clark. You don't got to remember Roof It Forward, ARAC, or Bryan Clark. Just search your phone for Roofer and you'll find Brian. You can then share his contact with your clients if you need to. You can call him and ask him a question. If you forget everything else I said, and then the home inspector finds that it needs a new roof and you're down to that, you can email over the home inspector's report and we can expedite things, But you'll have a contact for a roofer in your phone. And you're going to run across a deal where you'll need him. Please don't let yourself learn the hard way that you should have got a roofer involved earlier, because it's free. What we do is completely free. We're partnering with you and help you salvage your deals and help put more money in your pocket. Again, I touched on it earlier, but roofing being such a big bottom line item, right? If we can get that replaced or addressed in benefit of your side of the table, it's a big win for you. We can protect the sales price, that puts more money in everybody's pocket. Or you can even increase the sales price if you're on the listing side of things, right? So ultimately, that's the big picture of what we do. She allowed 30 minutes or so for us to talk, but it's pretty simplistic. When you need a roofer, we just want to be your roofer. So anybody in the room got any other talking points or question points about the due diligence group? Yes, sir.
When you're going in and looking at a roof, let's just say you're looking at a 20-year roof, at what point is there an age that you're just like, this roof isn't good anymore, it needs to be replaced?
A lot of times it has to do with the quality of the materials that were installed to begin with and whether the ventilation is proper. Ventilation is everything when it comes to roofing. So we take them on a case-by-case basis, but there is a certain age. Like if you were to send me an inspector report and it says that roof's 18 or 19 years old, I'm going to start telling you that, hey man, the roof may not be leaking right now, but I don't know if I would let my client inherit a 20-year-old roof without there being some sort of consideration.
And then just chime in there, as far as insurance is involved as well. We'll run into it sometimes where it might be a 17-year-old roof, and then your buyer wants to go with Liberty Mutual. They come out there to inspect the house. They see that it's a 17-year-old roof. That person's deductible or premium just skyrocketed. So just to make people aware of that beforehand, saying, hey, you're going to need a roof in the next couple of years. It's another thing. I don't mean to cut you off, Casey.
No,
you want to keep in mind, just which we have nothing to do with insurance. Just saying, hey, for this guy down the road, it's I was telling somebody beforehand. There's a couple companies now. Once they send this letter out saying like, hey, you had a $1,000 deductible, but we just realized that you have an Atlas Chalet roof, which is a discontinued shingle, or your roof is 20 years old. Well, your deductible just went from $1,000 to $5,000, and you have no say-so in it. Or you just went to a 1 or 2% policy, and you have no say-so in it. So that's bitten some customers of ours.
That's awesome information. I didn't realize that an old roof like that would raise the new buyers.
Yeah, and with all states and companies as well, will they'll say, and a lot of companies do it. Will they say you've got a $10,000 roof? I'll give you this example as well. Rather than doing a full roof replacement, they're going to depreciate that and say, all right, well, it's $10,000, it's 18 years old. We're going to give you $1,800 to replace the roof, and your deductible is
$1,000. And the customer has to come out of pocket the rest of it.
So you're essentially not doing much, but you've got to get the work done now that they've already seen the roof is out there. That they give you your time to get it done, and then or you can get dropped.
What if you saw a 30-year-old roof with 20-year shingles?
Yeah, and that's a drastic example, but I get what you're saying on it. The idea on it is this, man. We got to advise our clients, right? Like we're on their team. Mm-hmm. Just how like you wouldn't let them buy a house with polybutylene plumbing or with bad wiring or whatever. You want to know what you know about the roof. That protects every single thing underneath it. And with it being a free service that we offer, the main thing that you know is just never guesswork at it. If you see something it's a 3 or 5 year old house, it's an 8-year-old house even, you probably don't need us unless the home inspector finds leak spots and says, have this evaluated. At that point though, you can send us the home inspector's report, we can look at the pictures and usually be able to get you a budget price that keeps your deal on track without even actually going out there. Because we can just give you a standard, hey, roof leak repair, according to the size of the spot and how many rings it has around it, lets us know if it's a current leak and that kind of thing. We can just get you some Because a lot of times what's gonna end up happening, they're never gonna actually hire us to do that work anyway. Somebody's looking for one side of the table to get a deduction or an addition or something, and they'll get their brother or uncle to do it or something. So we'll just get you what you need. We'll get you some budget pricing on paper, an estimate to take to the table and serve you. If somebody ends up hiring us out of that, good deal, but, yeah. But one thing I wanted to mention before I forget though, you talked about a little bit older roofs. The other thing that you're gonna have in 15 plus year old roofs, chances are at some point in that lifetime it has been hit by hail. And it especially in the northwest corridor, it just seems like everything that comes out of Alabama just goes right up that way. So the chances are, if we go look at that, it may have some hail damage up there where we can go ahead and get the roof replaced, increase your curb appeal, protect your sales price. Just a real positive on your side of the table. So that's the main reason we want to look at it.
So that example was exactly what my mom's was. So we're under contract, they do a roof inspection, and they just knew the roof was old. And they knew, so I called them to come out, and we managed to work it through the homeowner's insurance to be paid for, and worked it out so that we can go ahead and get that roof replaced.
And then
So-
that was when we first met. So that was
Yeah.
the first, the first time that we worked together. And then even sometimes if that contract's on the table or if it comes to that point, I think I was saying this beforehand with you, with the buyer saying, hey, I want a new roof, the roof is shot. If they go through the seller's insurance, they can say at closing, like, hey, we'll pay the deductible. We just want these guys to do it. We want a new roof on the house. And you can get that done either at closing or,
And I saw some hands back here, I'll go right to them, but to follow up on what he's saying right there, even when you do that, it's just such a win for everybody involved. Because the seller's getting out from under that house, it's not like they're gonna make their premium go up, they're about to cancel that insurance policy on that house, right? And the claim isn't gonna follow them to their next house. Some people own 20 houses, each insurance stands alone, right? So, go ahead, brother.
I had a buyer that was looking at a house out in Sandy Springs. It was 900K, had Mediterranean shingles on it. I know those last about 50 years to be exact. Do you guys, how much would it be for you guys to come out and look at it and kind of give just an overview of if it needs to be replaced or what could we do if it?
Well, zero to come out, right?
Yeah, on those kind of roofs, a lot of times what we'll do is pull it up on satellite imaging and just look at the access.
Okay.
You can't walk on Spanish
Right.
tile shingles, and you can't walk on these tile and slate roofs like that without
Right.
causing damage. So if it's something where it's just leaking like a paper bag everywhere, and we can't from the ground or from the attic identify exactly what the repair point is, we may have to rent a lift of some kind. And then all of a sudden we're talking about $800 for a day to go rent a lift or something. So at that point, we don't try to make money off of that kind of situation, but if we incur costs on it, we'll ask you to, somebody to pick up the cost. But you do need to have us or somebody, whoever you trust, to come just advise you on that, because somebody could be buying a very expensive problem. Somebody could be buying a very expensive problem. We've done repairs on those roofs that cost $80,000, just repairs.
So we would cedar shake roofs the same way. You guys,
Yeah, he said that it was going to be around 100K. So
Yeah. And that's probably not even to actually replace the whole roof, that's
Right.
probably to repair a certain slope. And then what you're gonna think about that is your buyer is still gonna be ticked off, because that slope isn't patinaed like the rest of them, so now it's messed up the whole thing. Yes, sir.
What slope of roof are you able to get up and walk on? You stop at 1212?
Now we'll walk on anything, but we do have drones, if I feel it's a little unsafe or whatever. A lot of times what I'll do, just out of efficiency's sake, I've got the top of the line brand new drone, right? I'll fly that thing up and just see if I even need to get on the roof. If that thing will teach me everything I need to know, then I don't have to bust a sweat and get my ladder out anyway, right? Even risk it. But
if it's like a 15-year-old roof that you can see the algae on the front, it's a 14-12, so I'm probably not gonna hop up there.
Yeah.
I'll call him and say that's a lot.
And a lot of times, man, there's no reason to, because you look at it and you're like, because it's a real estate deal. If you're advising you on your own home, right, and it's just your house, I probably need to get up there and find out what's leaking and give you an option to, hey, we can repair the leak like this, or we can replace it like this. But representing your client, if that roof's that dang old, my advice is gonna be to you, go to fight for a new roof for your client. If it doesn't work, I can give you a repair price afterhand, but, you just don't want them to inherit something that's gonna end up being a problem for them just in a couple of years anyway.
Can the drone see what's going on with the flashing?
Not usually, but usually what we'll do is we'll see the water spots on the inside the home. We might take that information to the attic and be able to just peek out a window and line up and say, all right, we're in line with the swing set. And then when we go on the roof, we just look for there's always going to be leaking in some sort of penetration. Right? It's a vent, it's a valley, it's a popped nail, something like that. So we'll be able to narrow it down to an area a lot of times with the drone. If we can't, that's when we get our butts up there. So, and a lot of these guys, they just get up there anyway because they just don't want to. They don't like messing with the drone.
I'm scared to fly a drone. I don't want to crash. So Traveler's agent, Travelers is going strictly to drones now. So this guy's house, probably $700,000 house. This happened 3 weeks ago, where this Traveler's agent, I guess maybe forgot to charge the battery or something happened, and it slammed. Right. The good news is he bought the guy's roof, which was awesome. But it was an Atlas Chalet, so he's probably going to buy it anyway. But there's no questions asked. He's like, I'm going to buy this roof. I don't want to spend $3,000 of my own money and crash it. So I'm scared. He's got his FAA license and all that.
Nick, did you have another question?
Yeah, I was wondering if you can explain. I don't think I quite understand like the insurance part of it and negotiating that deductible.
Yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yeah, sure.
The three things that you said, repeat one more time, please.
Oh yeah.
The whole thing that he just asked.
Yeah, like if we're in the.
So you're on the buyer side?
Yes.
Okay, so say you're on the buyer side, they love this house, and you kind of get out there and you can see, and we can do, and I'd love to meet with you guys one-on-one if you'd like as well, to show you like, hey, when you pull up to a house, here's what you can look for. Like, you know, if it's a brand new architectural shiny roof and you can see some, and I can give you details on, if you see this stuff, we probably don't need to go out there. But if you don't see this, or if you see some, you know, look to be missing shingles, or, you know, see stuff laying in valleys, which shingles laying in valleys are on the ground, that's when we can say, hey, you know, what can we do? So if you're on that buyer side, and the seller's willing to play ball, we come out and look and say, all right, well, you know, we would recommend if this person were just to call us a full roof replacement. That's something that the seller's insurance would have to handle. So the seller would have to, you know, either trust us usually, which, you know, you can look at all this stuff right here. We have tons of reviews that they can look at. We're a legitimate company. We're not what we call chucking a truck that's going to come out and be like, yeah, give us $1,000, we'll fix it.
But if you don't mind, like, just kind of interject right there. Logistically, how it all goes down, you know, they paid their homeowner's insurance, right? There was a storm at some point in the past, probably during their coverage period, you know, where they had insurance coverage with State Farm, whoever they had. You as the buyer, or heck, honestly, it works the same either way. You represent the buyer or you represent the seller. You ask us to come out and look for whatever reason, a leak on the ceiling, just an old roof, whatever. If we feel like that there's hail damage on the roof, it'll be in our video. So we send that video via email over to you, and whoever owns the home has to file the insurance claim, right? So if you're working with the buyer, you've got to get the agent across the table to say, hey, look, we're going to be wanting a new roof out of this. Look at this video right here. My guy says that we can keep this off the bottom line for both of us, all right, and get the insurance company to pay this. Then our only sticking point becomes the deductibles, right? If it's your client and you're listening, easy conversation. It's a no-brainer. They're going to do that. If it's across the table, you've got to make them know that this is a win-win for everybody involved. This is why the homeowner has paid their homeowner's insurance premium all these years. Let's get some of that money invested back into their home now and protect our deal right here. And then what comes down, before I forget, the way it comes down is there's going to be a deductible. Usually $1,000 is normally what the deductible is. All right, your sale as the buyer is being able to tell the seller, look, if they'll just file the claim, we'll give you guys a $1,000 credit. Or we'll just pay the roofing company directly the $1,000. So have you spent $1,000 on your side of the table? Yes, but you've got a $20,000 value. So the next time when they're asking for an HVAC or paint or whatever, you're like, hold on, guys, hold on.
And then to go into it, going back to insurance as well, we were talking about premiums a minute ago. When your buyer buys a house, he's gonna have he or she's gonna have a brand new roof to go to insurance with and say, hey, I have a brand new roof, lower my rates, which we see happen every day.
What is that verbiage in the special steps? Because I know some lenders are very particular about how that's worded. Or
a lot of times what you're going to want to do is just get with the agent across the table and you guys figure out what closing attorney you're using, possibly even ask the closing attorney how they want that structured, and just make sure that I've had them where they don't even tell the closing attorney that this is all going down, because they're just like, you know what, it's going to just make it muddy. So we'll get the insurance paperwork done, we get the claim done, you guys go ahead and roof it, and the seller will just pay this roofer, and the buyer just paid the deductible, and nobody ever knows it went down. But listen, those are the kind of options we can get when you get us involved early. You get us involved at the beginning of due diligence, and all of a sudden it does get messy because we might get the claim part done before the closing, but I don't want to delay your closing. What I want to do is the seller to give the buyer credit or the buyer to give the seller credit for the amount of the insurance claim, right? And let's just, the day it closes, we roof it the next day, they can move in behind us. And we'll worry about getting paid, all right? But, you know, when we go into that, a lot of times we may end up having to put, you know, a lien on the property as soon as it closes. Because, you know, we got, unless the closing attorney is going to pay us, we're just hoping that the buyer is, you know, going to settle up with us. Because we contracted with the seller, you know.
Or you put a special stipulation in the contract after you know from the insurance adjuster what the deductible is gonna be, and if this can be done at closing or not, but a special stipulation saying buyer or seller agrees to pay deductible up to a certain amount for roof replacement to a, yeah.
And there was another question I'm going to get to, but I wanted to answer. Here's the big answer to it. Don't worry about it. That's what we do, right? All you need to do is get us involved. And like I said, I was a former agent. You've got people on your team right here that will help you figure this stuff out. Just let us get to the problem. And I've been in so many scenarios of this. You know, we put our heads together on this stuff, and we'll let you know the route to go on that particular deal that makes it clean as possible.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. Like, how long does that take in your experience?
The claims process part. So if someone files a claim today, the adjuster's going to contact him within 48 hours. He's likely not going to come out for another 4 or 5 days. So we got about a 5 to 7 day window, sometimes more if we just had a hurricane somewhere or something. We're busy, right?
Okay.
The adjuster comes out, so there's 1 week. All right. From the time he comes out and says, "Yep, I'm going to pay for this roof," it usually takes him about another week for him to get it through his underwriting and then to get you a check. So now we're 2 weeks in. From the dates we receive the insurance estimate, we're going to create our contract that mirrors that insurance estimate. All right, give it to you to present to the client. Whoever is going to be hiring, buyer, seller, whoever. From the day we get a signature on that, we'd be roofing the house 4 to 7 days later, and it's a 1 day project to roof any house. We can do entire apartment complexes in 1 day.
But so there's no way for us to know pretty much during due diligence whether or not it'll be approved for the roof to be replaced.
That's
Well,
how you extend your due diligence period.
Based on that.
There's never a guarantee, and I think Casey would say the same thing. There's never a guarantee on that, but I mean, we know
You pretty much know.
all the agencies really well, or all the insurance companies. For example, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus, but I know if there's, you know, a decent amount of damage, I'll state if it's solely wind damage, it's up there, and it's, you know, not a whole lot, or if it's noticeable, you might have 1 leak. I'll say probably won't buy the new roof.
Right.
Whereas State Farm is looking for a few, or Chubb Insurance is looking for, hey, we're just looking for a few.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was wondering. Do you guys pretty much know when you look at it, like, this is a guarantee?
I mean,
like,
we know-
We're not going to tell you that, but yeah.
Yeah, we don't put ourselves in the corners, but pretty much.
Yeah.
Okay.
And listen, we've all got all the same certifications that all the insurance adjusters do. Like, we're all paid certified, Xactimate certified, and honestly just School of Hard Knocks certified. I've seen 10,000 different adjuster appointments and what this company won't approve this company will approve that. But so I'm not going to hang false hope on your deal. What we're going to do is, in the video, we're going to say, hey, this is an option, and if it works out, it's just such a win-win for everybody that it makes sense to slow down and try this route. It affects the bottom line so much. Let me know if you guys want to try this, and you'd be surprised how many times people just come back and say, no, don't want to do that, just give us the price to pay it, or replace it, and we'll just do it that way. And I don't care who pays us the check, I'll just do it that way. Yes, sir.
How common is it that you're doing business with a seller who brings you out and then works the insurance angle, so he's offering the buyer virtually a new roof?
Well, we protect ourselves on that because, and we learned that the hard way. Okay, what we do is we've got a pre-claim contract, all right, that basically says if we put our expertise to work for you, we get this roof approved, we're doing the roof for the amount of the insurance estimate. And you know, if they want to wiggle out of that, they can, but there's a 25% fee of the amount we're able to get approved that they'll owe to us, because it took me a whole lot of sweat to know what I know, right? And I just got them an advantage. So they can get 75% of that advantage I got from them, but they're going to have to compensate us. So the long and short of that is we make sure that everybody on the front end, that everybody knows everybody else's intentions, right? That, you know, look, man, if I get this approved for you, we're going to get the roof replaced because that's what your buyer wants. ultimately, you gotta keep that in mind. Everybody wants the roof replaced. That's what everybody really wants. I mean, you could give them a credit if you want to, but it's bad agency on somebody's part for an insurance company to say, this roof is so bad that it needs to be replaced and we're gonna give you money to do it. And for an agent to let them pass that on to another, to somebody else without that work being done. It's bad agency on somebody's part. But I had another thought on that right there, but I forgot.
If you go up and look at the condition of a roof, you get up there and you see what's normal, which is the flashing was put up where it's laid on the roof, it's put up against the vertical, and they put an adhesive behind it, and that's called flashing. The alternative would be to cut the top end to the masonry, wherever you got to cut it into, as a better solution. If you got the slap it together approach up there, do you guys make a recommendation on how to fix it or to fix it, or?
Not necessarily, because if that's a fine way to do it if it's done correctly. If it's a 15-year-old roof, 18-year-old roof, and it hasn't leaked at the flashing, somebody did the flashing right. Now the caulking may need to be updated regularly, but if it ain't broken roofing, you don't fix it. You can actually cause leaks that weren't there previously by starting to manipulate the shingles around the area that you're repairing. Now, ultimately, most of the builders, it's very rare, unless it's a custom builder, actually cuts in that top edge of the counter flashing into the brick. Even my own home, it's not like that. But good roofers can externally flash something like that and it be just fine. As long as there's two layers of flashing, right? The step layer of flashing is under the shingles and usually behind brick, right? So it's really the functional layer. A lot of that stuff that you're seeing on the top side, it's more aesthetic than anything. It serves a little bit of function because you can keep it caulked and everything, but mostly aesthetic and what your eyes are actually seeing on the flashing. But heck, we'll do it however people will pay us to do it. Yes, sir.
So, you get a car, you change the oil in it. What do you do to a roof over the 20-year or 30-year lifespan of, your typical shingles to keep that roof, that system running smooth? Do y'all have any, do you just set it and leave it, or?
No, there's maintenance that's needed just like the car, no doubt. And here's the first thing, and the thing needs to be installed right. I'm telling you, I said it earlier, ventilation is key on roofing. Ventilation is will give you longevity on the roof. So if the ventilation isn't correct, my first advice is, well, let's get air moving through the attic, and it'll at least slow down the lifespan.
Ventilation and insulation, just to throw that in really fast. So
what's that?
If ventilation and insulation. So if you've got awesome ventilation, you've got a brand new ridge vent up there, but you have no insulation, or if it's down, it's not R38. If it's way below that, the ridge vent's probably not going to do you a ton of good going.
But given a short and quick answer to that really is, you got to keep the debris off the roof. You got to keep water moving. So you got to keep the gutters cleaned out, the downspouts cleaned out. You got to keep the valleys cleaned out. People with skylights or other vents, if they got overhanging trees, there's going to be debris up there. Shingles are not waterproof. They'll shed water, but if you cause anywhere that's just going to stay moist, it'll soak straight through there. It'll rot out the top side of the decking. It won't be the kind of leaks where they probably end up seeing a spot on the ceiling, but it's rotting out the decking up there when you have that kind of debris pile up. So keep things cleaned off a few times a year. Beyond that, the caulking that's used on, the plumbing pipes that come out, the metal HVAC pipes, all of those things, and on the chimney, the flashing you were talking about, all of that caulking is going to break down after 2 or 3 years. In Georgia, it's just so humid. We have hots and colds. There's a lot of expansion and contraction. That stuff opens up. So it just needs to be peeled off and recaulked and everything. Beyond that, those boots that go on the PVC pipes, like that's usually as part of the plumbing system, those boots, they dry rot, they crack, they become really brittle, just like an old set of tire on like an old vehicle that's just been sitting there. All right, so those things are the first leak points. So what we do is what's called a roof maintenance package. All right, we got a base price that we do it. We clean out all the gutters, clean off all debris off the roof, check those boxes or the boots out. They need to be replaced. We replace them. We recaulk everything on the roof, repaint all the pipes if needed. It's just like a base price to do that. And our customers that we roof their house, we recommend that they do that about every 3 years or so.
Every 3 years?
Yeah.
And how much does that cost?
Usually it's according to the size of the roof, the access to the roof, but we try to do them anywhere between probably $550 to $1,000, just according to the size of the job.
And you can just come and do the cleaning of the gutters as well?
we can just do gutters, but I always say, I mean, if my guy's gonna be putting a ladder up and getting up there, I need to send him with a caulk gun. There's gonna be something that needs to be caulked. We may as well go ahead and you know, do the other stuff.
So I work with a lot of sellers on that aspect of just doing that. Like I may not even have seen the roof, but like, hey Brian, you know, at this point, some of the seller or agents that I work with kind of just know what's up there from the pictures and the videos that they've seen. They're like, all right, well, the roof's 13 years old. Nobody's been up there before. Can you just send one of your crews out here, just do a basic maintenance package? So another thing, and Casey touched on it, was the boots, where they crack around there. So what we'll do on those, if it's not cracked yet, but it's getting older, they make what's called a rain collar. So it looks like a little UFO, little disc made out of rubber, and there's a hole in the center, slides right on top of that boot. So it's gonna protect the boot, give it an added layer of protection. So we'll throw a couple rain collars on, all the pipe boots as well, hit your exposed nail heads, and then even your home inspector, right? So when the home inspector comes out there, if she sees that on the roof, she's like, all right, well, these people take care of their house. Usually, you know, the other home inspector we work with will see those things. He's like, yeah, I mean, if I see, you know, some new caulk or rain collars, it's just kind of all right, the roof's probably in good shape. Somebody's been up there recently.
And we hear word on the street is that every dollar suggested in the home inspection report, the buyer asks for $3 per. So if you're saying you could do that in the $550 to $1,000, I mean, 3 things on an inspection report of minor damage of $500 is you've already paid for it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the idea. We do not make our money $500 at a time. We're gonna it's basically a pass through for us. What we want to be is your roofer. All right. So we will help keep your deal together as cheap as possible. Right. Keep the wheels moving and it not be a snag point.
Is this to suggest that it's a good idea to be up there every 3 years checking the caulking?
Yeah, and honestly, to check it, I would say check it every 2 years. But by every 3 years, it's going to need to be, you know, recalled. But again, if we're talking about keeping debris cleaned off, you got to do that at least 2 or 3 times a year. I mean, it's not. Everybody always thinks about fall, like in the winter when everything has fallen. Of course, you clean everything off. But all these windstorms we get, it shakes and rattles these trees, and it fills up those gutters and fills up the roof just as much. So, really, it's for people that really take care of their stuff. They have us inspect it quarterly. And if the caulk needs it, we caulk it. If this needs cleaning, we clean it. You know, and we can do that a lot cheaper than $500 to $1,000 a pop. But
It seems like the idea of the rain collar is good. I put those on brand new houses.
we put them on every roof we replace.
Yeah.
It gives us the ability to do a 10-year warranty instead of a 5-year warranty.
What do you put inside?
Those rain collars he was talking about, the little rubber gaskets, they go down off the PVC pipes. So we put a new boot on, like when we replace the roof, put the new boot on, and then we just put a rain collar on it. Because now the UV rays and the baking is happening on my disc, it's not happening on my boot, right?
And that can be replaced, you know, if it's a walkable roof for a homeowner, you know, some people don't want to get all the way up there, but if it's walkable, some house, single story, whatever, that's something they can run to Home Depot for $5 and replace it in 5 years or whatever, versus calling a crew out if we don't put that on. If that boot cracks, you're looking at, you know, there's a minimum crew fee to come out there, a few $100s, plus the shingles that might get damaged around it, so sell it that way too. You know, it's just, it makes you guys look like all-stars. And we're not trying to sell you on this. I'm not going to retire on maintenance packages. But I can, you know, just tell you, I'm sure Casey can
No,
from experience as
it's-
well. Like if you go to your sellers,
Are you guys fully in-house? You're using outside subcontractors?
We are all in the house, other than, here's kind of how the contracting industry works. Even though our guys are company shirts, company trucks, they only work for us, they're still subcontractors. Because if not, and they do that for workers' comp reasons. In our industry, workers' comp costs $1.03 per dollar. So literally, if I paid one of those guys as an employee and I'm covering his workers' costs, every time I paid him $1, it costs $1.03. I go backwards for every dollar. So to keep our costs down, everybody provides their own workers' comp. So even though our guys work for us, we pay their LLC. They provide their own workers' comp that passes them with audit from us. So everybody's covered. But so the honest answer is that big long explanation, but the surface answer is no, they only work for us and they've been with us forever. You know.
So what you're doing is you're causing them to give you a certificate of workers' comp insurance certificate, so you know they've got it.
every month.
So we don't cut a check to anybody without verifying.
I can attest to that.
Because he lapsed one time.
Yeah, so, and you have to do it, yeah, a little side note. No, yeah, so you have to do it like about a month before it lapses. And then we have a lady that's in the office that literally checks that thing. If it's not every day, then it's every other day. for the crews that we have. So they pay monthly. The crews do. So we have to check that monthly. If we get caught, we've known guys that this has happened to, friends of ours that has happened to, that own their own, smaller businesses that didn't check it, and they're having to back pay $140,000 for the year because
You
this
guys
guy.
have a write-up or something that can be used by such as the agent that explains what happens when you hire somebody who is half your cost for labor. They don't have any insurance, they don't have workers' comp especially, and something happens to them. What happens to the homeowner as a result of that and no insurance being in place?
Yeah, that's a pretty specific issue.
We're gonna get sued.
Chief, you need to write that up.
Yeah.
What's
But,
that?
You need to write that.
yeah, that might be,
And we get
I
that.
haven't ran across that
Publish it
because
to the
all our guys
office.
are always insured, so I don't know how they handle it. But I tell you this though,
That's your competition.
yeah.
It is.
I've gotten
It
bids,
is.
labor side, where you're $1 and the other guy's 50 cents.
Yeah.
And they sell that package all day long.
Oh,
People
yeah.
up and down the street, you got a sign in the yard that says Joe Cheap Roofing.
And we know who our competition is and what they do, and some of them are really good at marketing. Some of them are really put together dudes, but they know what they're up to. And here's the thing: we got a dang good thing going. Literally, this last year, we're the biggest roofing company in Georgia. We passed the roof guys this last year for being the biggest roofing company in Georgia, and we don't plan on slowing that down. So in fact, like literally June 1st, we brought all of our sales guys, everybody in as being W-2 as opposed to being 1099 like I was talking before when he lapsed his stuff. For one thing, it protects us from there being anything rolling downhill. But the other thing is we've got control over our quality, we've got control over what we want to put out there. Now our subs though, it takes literally paying a check to one sub that didn't have active workers' comp for them to come in and just audit every single check you ever wrote, right? And so it just isn't worth it for us. It isn't worth it for us. Like there's literally no amount of money that we could make that would make it worth it for us to pull the plug on the volume that we're doing. Because we used to be a model where, man, every dollar counted. We had to maximize every single job, and try to get us to be healthy and to be wealthy. That's what we're trying to do. Well, as we've grown this thing, they're able to operate on a lot smaller margins. So you just don't go at risk on things like that. And the good thing about it is it puts an extra layer of protection for your client. Because now that sub's got his own general liability and workers' comp, we've got general liability and workers' comp, and when they contract with us and we contract with these guys, anything that were to happen to one of those workers on the site, before it ever made it to their homeowner's insurance, it would roll through too, and it just isn't going to do that. So it's just extra layer of protection for everybody. Somebody over here raised their hand, and I never called on them. Is there somebody else?
I think we covered it.
Causing
think it was
problems
Tim.
over there. I'm looking at you. It's the usual suspect over there. I have my suspicions.
So did we learn something today?
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
A lot of things?
Yes.
I learned something, and I've worked with both of them, but thank you so much for coming out. Please use these folks as resources, not just when you have a problem, but if you have a question, take a picture, send it to Melanie, text. They're all good at communicating by cell phone. So these are your resources to look good in front of your clients and to be educated as to what you and protecting your clients.
I'll tell you, if you don't mind me saying, our biggest source of actually getting new agents that work with us isn't doing this. Our biggest source is we just kick the crap out of the agent across the table, and now they want to do that with their clients. Like we got the huge win that they couldn't get because we had our videos, we had the expertise, we were guiding these, your client along, and there was literally nothing that they could do other than concede because it's all on video, and it's all legally. It's just, I say that to say, like, let us be a tool for you. It's free and it will make you money. I cut you off.
That's okay. That's all right. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.